Okay, Itameksistiko. It is the afternoon of Thursday, September 28th, 2017, in the lunar cycle Awakasikisum, the deer moon. And yesterday, I posted a video where I talked about a GoFundMe page that some of my friends had put together to try to raise money for me to purchase a new MacBook Pro, because my workhorse that I do all my multimedia stuff for this YouTube channel has died, and I really need a new computer, and it has to be hardcore. So it's going to cost a bit, and I don't have the funds. In the last 24 hours, quite a bit has been raised, and I really appreciate all you guys out there that chipped in and helped out. And I promised that anyone that donated at least $20, that in payment, if you had a question or you had some kind of a topic or something that you wanted me to address, that I would respond in video form to those inquiries. And so today I'm going to do the first of those, and this question comes from Janelle, and I'm not going to say your last name because I don't know what you think about your privacy on YouTube and what have you, but Janelle and family would like to know more about the archaeological site inside the chain link fence on the bike path just outside Canyon Crest on the way to Riverstone. So we're here. This is Canyon Crest over here, and the canyons in general in the northernmost part of them. The bike trail goes along this route, heads over to Riverstone. I used to run that all the time when I was living in Riverstone. And over here we got a green chain link fence, and there is something in there. Now myself, I wouldn't necessarily call it an archaeological site, nor would I call it a heritage site. The language of the mainstream about these kind of places doesn't really get to what we want to know in terms of what they are from a Blackfoot perspective, right? So I would call this maybe Uxtuxin, which means that it's a pile of rocks, a cairn or an effigy. Another word that you might use for this would be Atapisko, which means a place with a living presence. It's a living being and a sacred site. So the chain link fence is open to the public. You can go in there, and you should be respectful of the site, of this place, of the being that's in there, and no vandalism, of course. Don't take anything that you find in here, but you know, I think people should feel welcome to come in and visit. And I'll tell you what I know about this site, and really and I don't even like calling it a site. Just that language is all wrong. But really, nobody really knows what's going on here. And the reason that nobody really knows is because of a period of prolonged apartheid that happened here in Alberta, and it's still in ways happening, but it was much stronger before, in the early period of colonization. From about 1883 until the 1960s, members of Kainai, the blood tribe, or Piikani, and Siksika, during that 80-some year period, members were not allowed off of the reserve without a pass from the Indian agent, who worked for the government, right? And the Indian agent would issue passes to do things like go and visit family on other reserves, or if you had some economic, you had some business affair that you needed to take care of, he might give you a pass. But otherwise, you had to stay on the reserve. And so the community, the Blackfoot community as a whole, had been separated from a lot of these sacred beings on the landscape, these Atapiskoiks, you might call them, on the landscape. And over the past, really over the past maybe 2 decades, there's been a reacquaintance going on. We're going back and visiting these places and getting to know them and making connections with them. Now there are a lot of places off reserve that we still know like what happened there, and you know, that's part of what this place is. This place, you know, it's a stone effigy. It's a stone effigy of something. Now, I first came to find out about this place probably 7, 8, 9 years ago, as the neighborhood here was being constructed. The place was observed, identified, archaeologists brought in. I think it was Neil Moreau and his Arrow archaeology crew that came in here and dealt with it, surveyed it, and they mapped out everything that they could see on the surface. And I think they cut back the foliage. Like right now, if you walk in here like I am and look at this, you can't really get an understanding of what it actually looks like, or what it would have looked like without all the foliage growth up around it, right? It's an effigy of some kind of an animal, or something, but we can't really see it right now. Some of the rocks have sunk under the ground. Others are just so covered with foliage that we can't make out what it is. But the Arrow archaeology crew, or whoever it was that did this survey, they mapped out as best as they could what they could see on the surface, brought it to Blood Tribe elders, and the Blood Tribe elders thought their best guess was that it was a turtle, Spope B, sits on top. Those painted turtles that you see down in Elizabeth Hall wetland. And they've long been a part of Blackfoot tradition. And if it is Spope B, as they think it is, then what my elder for the Beaver Bundle tradition, the late Alan Pard, what he taught me was that wherever you see those turtles on the landscape, that marks an area where there was an old tobacco planting grounds. You know, you'd have the traditional tobacco planting gardens, and they'd be down in the river valley, but they'd be marked up on top on the coulee rim like this. So that may be what this is, but nobody's sure. But all the same, whenever you come across something like this, and you will come across things like this anytime you're in the natural grasslands anywhere along the rivers in southern Alberta and in Montana, you'll find these, and there's lots of them. And even here in Lethbridge there's more than one. I'll show you another one in this video, but we'll start here. Whenever you find these effigies, and even the word effigy is just a terrible word, because it suggests that it's a representation of rather than the being itself. You know what I mean? Wherever you find these, something happened here, right? In this case, maybe it was part of the tobacco planting complex, which is a large ceremonial complex in the past that used to be as large, as extensive as the Sundance ceremony almost in itself. That hasn't been practiced for a long time, but there are people that are trying to revive it. I think the last traditional Blackfoot tobacco planting ceremonies occurred in Siksika sometime in the 1950s. Here on the Blood Reserve close to Lethbridge, I think it was in the 1930s or even 1920s that the tobacco planting died off. But like I said, there's a renewal going on for that. It could be that, but it could be something else. It could be that somebody sat here and fasted, and they got a gift, like a spiritual gift from an animal or from something else, and this place might mark that. they mark the origins of things and the locations of events that occurred that were important. And so whatever, sometimes there's bundles that are connected to these places, and when that's the case and you know what's connected, then if you're a caretaker of that bundle in the present day, when things wear out with that bundle, because things do, when you're talking about thousands of years of use, things that are inside the bundles wear out and you have to replace them. And so these would be the kind of places you'd go to bring the old materials and return them to the earth, and then you could make new and put it in and add it into the bundle. These are also places where you can make offerings or gifts directly to spiritual beings. There's there's some really larger, what they call medicine wheels, that are effigies of the sun, that are the sun. And these are places where you can go directly make gifts to the sun and offerings to the sun, or where you can go to seek advice from the sun. And this too, like here, there's something going on here. And it's not like it's totally lost knowledge, because it's still on the landscape, and it's still, as long as we have the species here that have always been here, and as long as we have these things on the landscape, we can still come back here, and we can visit with these places. The late Narcissus Blood used to call it Oxysoatop. We visit, which really means sitting down and visit with these places. And so a Blackfoot person coming to this place, coming to this site, I don't like any of the language, but coming here might bring tobacco to offer, might bring food to feed this animal, or other things, like things that you want to shed in your life and return to the earth, and then you make anew, like this offering here. Somebody brought an offering down fairly recently, it's still fairly intact. So you can see that this is still being used. In fact, that it's being renewed, brought back into active practice in the tradition here. So it's an important place, and when it was identified, and when the archaeologists kind of did their survey and showed the elders advised them to build this fence here to protect it. Personally, I don't like the fence, because the fence to me says two things. The first and most important thing that it says to me is that it's part of the funerary tradition of the mainstream, and that's why you see so many so-called heritage sites or archaeological sites surrounded by fencing, because it's a little grave in that tradition, and usually you have an interpretive sign that's the tombstone telling you, here lies such and such. It takes it out of present, it takes it out of present use, and out of living, out of the realm of the living. I don't like the fencing, and I've seen alternatives to the fencing. Let's take a little walk. I've seen alternatives, like the late Narcissus and we visited Scotland one time, and we visited a couple of times actually, but we went around to some of their ancient sites, and what I noticed was that they didn't have this kind of thing. They didn't always have interpretive signs, and they didn't have fencing, and they didn't have vandalism either. And that's the second part of this fence. I mean, that's the real reason why the elders want this fence up here, is to keep vandalism out. But I think it almost invites it, because it suggests, oh, there's something over here that you're not supposed to mess with. And people who are going to be vandals, that's what's going to attract them. So once you put up a fence, I worry about it. In fact, if you go to a lot of the sites in Alberta that are considered heritage sites and that are being curated as such by the government, you'll find they're being vandalized all the time. Even places like Writing on Stone. Writing on Stone has these magnificent panels of pictographs in a very secure area, locked up, guarded, and still people somehow every year get in there and vandalize them and try to erase the Blackfoot pictographs, or scratch over them, spray paint, you know. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I didn't see that same thing going on in Scotland. And the thing about Scotland is, like, the old sites, they're Pictish, so they're not considered to be to have their origins in the people who are there today. Like, the people who are there today, the Scots, are not considered to be descendants of the Picts, if that's what they're called. But still, they have a lot of respect for those sites. And I think something has to happen here, where we have to nurture an identification with these places on our landscape, so that they're not vandalized, and so that they're respected, and so that they become, you know, the visits with them and the learning that comes from them can become part of the mainstream. I think that's why I'm willing to do this video and share this stuff, because I think it's important that people know about these places and what they are and what they mean originally. So yeah, I'll show you a photograph of one of the sites that we visited in Scotland, which is right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the neighborhood. There was a playground right next door. It's a burial mound and a pictograph on a rock, an old Pictish pictograph. Nobody was vandalizing that stuff. It was just part of the modern landscape, and I think that can happen here too. But somehow we have to get to where in the majority mindset, there's going to be a respect for them. Okay. Now I want to show you something magical, because I talked about how this place might relate to tobacco planting. The turtle, right? The turtle is how it relates. Okay. Why the turtle? Well, the turtle gave its shell to the tobacco planting, and in the tobacco planting ceremonies, there's a big rawhide bowl that's made that is the turtle shell, and it's painted as such. And in that bowl is a mixture of the fertilizer and the tobacco seeds that the little balls that are going to be planted are made in. Right, they're cooked up, so to speak, in that bowl, and then that bowl is left as an offering there. That's what the turtle gave to tobacco planting. Turtle doesn't show up too many places in Blackfoot ceremony, but that's one place that it does, and that's why the turtles are there to mark the tobacco planting sites. Now, something that I noticed about a month ago, I came through here on my bike actually, and I noticed this plant. And there's a couple of these plants along the path here, if you take a look. And this plant, it's not in flower anymore, unfortunately, but when I passed through, it was in flower, and I recognized it right away as a flower that is of the Nicotiana genus. Right? It's a tobacco plant. It's not the Blackfoot tobacco, but it is a tobacco. There's actually two species of Blackfoot tobacco, traditional tobacco, both of which my wife and I grow, and we've been growing for about 17 years now. We don't grow it every year, but like we didn't grow it this year, but we grow it. But yeah, now when I see tobacco, I know it, right? And this is I believe a tobacco plant. I think it's something that was sold as an ornamental, like the genes manipulated and a new strain of tobacco created as an ornamental plant. and it's probably, you know, escaped. But tobacco has this thing where, you know, it really needs to be planted by humans, and so when you find escaped ones, these are very hardy plants, and I find it just a little bit interesting that there are tobacco plants growing here where I walk the coulees all the time and I never see tobacco, but here is the only place that I've seen it, and I find it very interesting that it's right next to what may have marked in old tobacco planting grounds. So to me, that's something. But I'm going to go over to Heritage Heights now, and I'm going to show you another site over there. And that site might be related to this one. It might not, but it's similar. Hey, it's another effigy. Okay, so I'm out at the second site that I wanted to show you, the one by the Heritage Heights neighborhood, and it might be connected to the one at the canyons, I don't know. This is the Heritage Heights neighborhood, the like the northernmost part of it, and there's an access off of the road there to get out here. There's several access points throughout Heritage to come out here onto the coulees. You can see how close we are to the bridge, the high level bridge here, and here you have the stairway going down that they made the other year. And actually, while they were making that stairway, the guys identified that there was something here, right? And I was called out. There was a few of us that were called out to look at it and give our impressions, and then some photographs and such and description were sent up to the province about the site to the archaeologists. But in any case, I had heard of this site before. I just never known exactly where it was. My late friend Marvin Caffrobe, back 7-8 years ago, when they found that one at the canyons, I was talking to Marvin about it, and he told me a story about how the landowner on the west side here was friends with his Uncle Morris. His Uncle Morris just lives across the river on the Blood Reserve, and that guy took him out and he showed him these two sites. Showed him the one over at the canyons area, and he showed him another one up this way by the high level bridge, but Marvin never knew exactly where it was, and I don't know why I never bumped into it. It's the kind of thing that it goes unnoticed, right? You can see out here, it's a very different scene, right? There's no fences, there's no need for anything. This neighborhood's been here, you know, at least a decade, more than that, and nobody's molesting this site. But this is what it is, okay? It's another Uxtuxin, another stone cairn, and again it would be considered Atapisco, most likely, that this is an effigy of an animal or a spirit that gave somebody something, or something happened here, right? Something originated here, something important happened here, and it's marked in stone. And it's another place where somebody could go to make offerings. In fact, I've come out here to make offerings. I've gone to the turtle effigy to make offerings as well when I lived out in Riverstone. But yeah, it goes pretty unnoticed. Now, what Marvin told me was that, again, that one out there was a turtle, Spoke B. And then he described this one as Namp Ski. And Namp Ski is a tiger salamander. Most people in the community call it a lizard, but it's a tiger salamander. And that tiger salamander, the Namp Ski, is connected to the tobacco planting as well, if that's what it is. Because the Namp Ski, in the story of the origin of the tobacco, there's the older guy who goes out and fasts to try to learn about the tobacco that these brothers are hoarding. You know, they got the tobacco in their dream, in their sequence of dreams, but they hoard it from the people. And then this old guy goes out there to fast. This Asokanaki goes out there in the coulee to fast, to try to find out about what it is. And the animal that kind of sees what he's doing and comes and tries to help him is Nam Ski. And it's Nam Ski who calls on birds to come, and he sends them up one at a time to try to reach the sun to get that seed. It's only the crow who's able to reach the sun. That's why he turned black. But if it is Nam Ski, but when I look at it, I don't know, because I see it as kind of an oval shape. It does have some appendages, but it really doesn't strike me as looking anything like a Nam Ski. And so I don't know what it is, really. And I don't know if it's connected to the other site. And even if it was Nam Ski, doesn't necessarily connect to the tobacco site, because Nam Ski comes into play in a lot of different ways in the Blackfoot spiritual tradition. So who knows? But it's another sacred site that we have in Lethbridge. And if you're around these coulees, you know, there's others. Okay, there's other features on the landscape here that are ancient features, and some of them you really need the trained eye to recognize what you're looking at, and that's why I think, you know, something like Disco's, most people wouldn't even, passing by, wouldn't even give it a second glance. But I just wanted to show it, you know, to show that there's more to the landscape of Lethbridge than most people think. So hope that answers your question. And yeah, there's always more to say, but tried to give at least a fairly thorough introduction. Again.